Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Gathering hosted by SRS Paranormal. We have an early show tonight. Normally we're on at 8 o'clock. We're on at 5:30, which I know is kind of early. But the reason is because we have a very, very special guest coming to us from the UK, and I will get to that in just a minute. We do have a couple of real quick announcements that I want to hit before we get into tonight's show. As you guys know, we are in the home stretch to the Field of Fears documentary. We will be leaving to start filming that next weekend, and we will be joined by Medium Sky Ray, J.W. Prather of IDC Devices, and Justin Spurrier of Spurrier Paranormal, as well as our entire team. It's going to be an incredible experience to get the opportunity to film there, but we still need your help. We still have the GoFundMe up to try and help us finish getting the final funding that we need. We have our cinema photographer and our audio guys and everybody ready to go. The production is going forward, but we do still need that help to offset that cost because we are not being paid by a production house to do it. We are funding that ourselves. So please make sure you go to the link that is pinned at the top of our Facebook page and consider giving us a donation. We'll take whatever you got. You got some spare change rolling around your cup holder? We absolutely need it. We need the help. So we're excited to do this project, and the project also benefits STOP, Save the Old Properties. That is a nonprofit that was started by the owner of Randolph County Asylum to help restore those to their original condition. So without further ado, let's get into tonight's show. We have a very special guest. We have Charlotte Underwood. She is an internationally renowned medium. She is in the UK. That is where she works out of. She has appeared on several of the paranormal shows over in the UK. She'll talk about some of those appearances that she's had too, because she told me, and where their television and radio shows are different than ours. I don't want to butcher those, but we will bring Charlotte on here and let her tell you all about her background. So, Charlotte, welcome to The Gathering. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
So it is 10:30 where you are. So thank you for doing such a late show. When Charlotte and I started talking about bringing her on, I was like, oh, we come on at 8 o'clock. And she's like, yeah, no, that's not going to work for me because it's like really going to be a lot later here. So didn't take that into account. But so Charlotte, tell our viewers, tell them all about yourself, your background, and what shows and things you've worked on over in the UK.
Yeah, of course. I'll just say a quick hello to Donna because I've just seen that she said hello there. Hi, Donna. Hi, Ronald. Thank you for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening. So I've been doing mediumship for professionally 23 years now. Coming up 24 years. I've been working in the paranormal field for coming up 13 years. So it's been a little while. It's something that is obviously mediumship's my life, and I absolutely love paranormal work. I've always had a calling to it. So yeah, that's the way I went. So the show that I was on here in the UK was with the PIC channel, and it was Britain's most haunted places. And we did a section of it with the Mermaid Inn in Rye. It's a beautiful 15th century hotel. And
wow.
It's got a lot of history, and it's one of my favorite places to have actually investigated. We had so many different characters come up in there, and as I always say to people when I'm taking people out with my team, the history in these places, it's like peeling an onion. You can peel so much one night, and then you need to go back, over time. But it's literally like peeling an onion. So you don't always get everything out that time, but it's such an amazing place. I've got an American team that are actually coming over in January of next year, that are coming to. We're going to be doing some more filming, so that's going to be fun. So if you guys would like to come, you're very welcome.
Absolutely, we'd love to get over to the UK. Absolutely,
yeah.
That's what I think is.
So we hope.
What I think is so amazing, though, is when I talk to people from overseas, because there's a couple other paranormal investigators that I communicate with from time to time on Facebook. One's in Ireland. There's a couple others in the UK. That's one of the mediums who work with Hey Sky. She's actually going to be on the project I was just mentioning. But what I always find so fascinating is when you guys talk about your stuff in your history, you're like, well, 15th century or 14th century. And it's like, our history is like, it's juvenile compared to the history that you guys have right over there.
Yeah.
And I know, for us, which our team is comprised of, empaths and psychic mediums, as well as sensitives and researchers. And some of us are getting further into our own mediumship abilities. And we have so much stuff happen so quickly, like you're talking about those layers in the locations we have. So I can't imagine when you compound another 300, 400, 500, 600 years of human interaction, what that must be like for you as a medium. So how do you, I guess the question I want to ask real quick, Charlotte, is how do you process that? How do you kind of start for you with that many spirits? How do you kind of separate that out?
See, for me, it's become the norm, so it doesn't really faze me, and I work particularly as a spiritual medium, so I don't work on a psychic level. Obviously, there's nothing wrong with lots of different ways of working with
Sure.
with mediumship. It's just I've always worked on a spiritual level. However, when I work in the paranormal field, I do work a little bit differently. So I can touch a wall and I can pick up hundreds and hundreds of years of, I can see how the building used to look. I can see where things used to be, what it used to be, people that used to be there. And I can see the different ranges of time and age.
Oh, wow.
It's such a, to me, it's a real special ability. I also do transfiguration mediumship. So I don't know if you guys know what that is, but basically it's where you will find some mediums that do transfiguration have an actual guide that steps inside them and they talk for them. But
Right.
with me, I actually do it. I only do it when I'm working in the paranormal field. So I have spirits step inside me. My guides and my gatekeeper are always there protecting me. So my voice can change. So I can be a man, I can be a child. It just comes out. And my whole, I've never actually, I don't remember any of it because obviously I'm not, my soul gets put to one side while this is happening. So it's just when I've been obviously recorded that I've seen things back. And it's quite amazing when you actually look at it, because it's not me, just using me as a filter, really, as a vessel.
Right. And truly channeling. Yeah, I totally understand what you're talking about there. Yeah.
But my main love for doing what I do within paranormal work is to get people who have never experienced, who have been going for years and years and years on these investigations. And there's teams out there that believe that you shouldn't ground, you shouldn't open and close your chakras, you shouldn't protect. Actually, if you do those things, you get more. And this is what I try to put across to people, because you're connecting more with the spirit on their level, and even when you come to like residual energies, you still see more, because obviously with residual, as we know, they're just doing what they did at that time. They don't interact with us. When it comes to active energy, that's when it's so important, so I love to get people to experience, and I've had people in tears because they've been doing it. One guy was doing it 20 years and he'd never experienced anything the way he did that night, and it was just amazing. So it made me cry. I was like, oh,
absolutely.
It's so lovely to see that he really enjoyed this, but one thing that I mean, obviously, like you say, the shows are very different from both sides of the pond, I suppose, and here we have had in the past mediumship paranormal shows where the medium will go around and say what's there, da 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 da. I hold back. Yes, I pick it up, but I want people to experience it first. Okay, so I will. Right. I know what comes. So then, when it comes to the end of the evening, I will give my portrayal of what I have seen. Then the people say what they have seen, and we'll match it up. So yeah, it's quite that. I love the paranormal.
Us too, absolutely.
Well, as a psychic medium, do you prescribe to the equipment that most paranormal investigators use, or do you prefer just to use your psychic medium abilities when you're
so obviously I don't work at the psychic level, but it's a spiritual level, so it's a little bit different. But I love don't get me wrong, I love tech because it helps people to see what I see. you know. So I will say,
Right.
you know, somebody will say, oh, you know, somebody may ask me, what are you seeing at the moment? And then, you know, we've got the camera in front of us and there it's happening, you know. So that I think tech it's so important for people who aren't able to see or, you know, be able to connect, you know. So it's very, very important. I love a bit of both, really.
And
All
I kind
right.
of want to
Okay.
go back to a point that you made, Charlotte, that I think, speaking of I can use my own personal journey sort of as a reference point. I think when a lot of people get involved in paranormal, it's because of an experience or something happened, you know, and they get pulled into paranormal, and then they kind of see what is on TV or on YouTube or whatever, and then they mimic that. But they also get so afraid of darkness and all these bad things that can happen. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm saying that I think they close themselves off even more. And I think by doing that, you have less experiences. That's why I think some teams can go in, and let me say that you should absolutely shield, you should absolutely ground, you should absolutely use whatever protections you use. And anybody that watches our show knows that we are very big on that, because there are dangers out there and things can happen if you're not careful. But the point that I'm trying to make is, I think that people get so closed off sometimes that they don't have experiences because they don't allow themselves to feel anything, and they just rely on just getting that EVP or just getting that picture or just having that piece of equipment validate experience, that they ignore the other things that are happening. And our team works similar to what you do in a way, because our mediums are spiritualist mediums. We do a lot of the Victorian era methods. We do a lot of stuff with dowsing rods and spirit boards and seances and pendulums. And we do all that, you know, we ground and shield and all those things as part of our process. So we're very familiar with that type of investigating. And I think that's the point that I was trying to get back to. And I know I kind of drove around the county to get to the barn, but the point that I was trying to make is, what you said is so true. When you allow yourself to fully experience everything in a safe way, the interactions that you have with spirit are so much deeper. It's such a deeper connection with the history, the energy, and the story really gets unfolded for you when you do that. So I think that's really fascinating, that the way that you do that work, and we can totally resonate with that.
Yeah, it's one of the most important things to me, and again, it's just my belief, but I do feel that when people go in the other aspect and just want EVPs, you know, I love a K2, don't get me wrong, I do love a K2, and it's the most simple item, but it's brilliant, you know. And I think that's your time to stop, you know. Why are you doing it anymore? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you don't want to actually experience, and you just go in there with this, it's almost just, and you do put a block there, it becomes a wall.
Yes.
You know, and you're not going to experience these things. You know, and you can get some good venues, you can get some great venues, you can get some venues that just don't have anything happen that night, but it doesn't mean there's nothing there, you know.
Yes.
And one of the things that does really, as I call it, annoy me, when team, like one venue in particular that I have been to probably 5 times with a previous team, it was like, this place has been done and done and done, because the guy just does it for money, and done and done, and the spirit get fed up.
Sure.
You know, so they won't. It's like we're not performing monkeys here. You know, we will, if we want to come out, we'll come out. If we don't, we don't. And that's how we are as human beings. You know, just because they've gone to spirit world doesn't make them any different. You know, so if they're getting annoyed, they do. You know, and I think it's so important to remember and respect. The biggest thing,
absolutely.
And one of my biggest no-nos is provoking spirit. You must never ever
100%.
provoke, never, because especially if you haven't protected yourself, if you haven't and done all the things that you need to do, because you have no idea what you can carry home.
That's 100% true.
I always say to people, so important.
Yeah, we absolutely work the same way. We don't believe in provocation. We believe that you should treat the living no different than treat the dead no different than you treat the living. You would not walk into a giant grocery store or supermarket and just start, I would hope you wouldn't, just start being a jerk to everybody that's there. So why would you walk into a haunted venue and start disrespecting the spirits that were there long before you were? And start acting that way. So that is 100% truth, Charlotte. I couldn't agree more with that. I think we had a question earlier. I saw there's a couple that have popped up that are interesting ones I'd like to hit. Ronald had asked this here. He had said, when did you realize you had this gift? And tell us some background.
Of course, yeah. So it's actually on both sides of my family. My great-great-grandmother on my dad's side, she was a famous medium, and people used to come miles and miles to see her. And I never really got told about this until about 4 years ago, which is unbelievable. So yeah, it was sort of, both my parents are sensitives, put it that way. They are sensitive. So I sort of got it tenfold. So it was something I was born with, but the first time that I actually remember was when I was 5 years old, and we were living in a Victorian terraced house. Because the town where we lived, it used to be like a cotton mill town, so they had a lot of terraced properties, where it's house after house after house, all in one row, if you will. And anyway, we were living in this house, and basically this little boy used to come to me, and he still comes every so often now. I still hear from him, and he basically used to come and play with me in my bedroom. And I had my dad was in the military, so he worked away, and my mum had her business, so again she worked away, so we had a nanny. And one day, I remember it like it was yesterday, but I remember I was throwing this ball in my room, and she kept hearing clunk and then nothing, clunk, nothing. So she came upstairs. She said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just playing with my friend." And she said, "Oh, don't be silly," and sort of like going, no. Anyway, she then went downstairs, and I'm doing it again and doing it again. So she came back up the second time, and she saw the little boy stood there. And basically what was happening was I was throwing the ball. It was hitting the ground once and stopping midair because he was catching it. And then he threw it straight back to me. So it was firing back at me quite quick. So for that to happen, he was such a strong energy. But what I picked up was he'd been knocked down outside the property, used to live in the house. And at that time, there was just because my dad was away, there was myself, my mum, and my middle sister living there. And they obviously, he didn't feel threatened with us because we were women. And he often used to go, like when my mum used to bath me, she told me quite a few months ago actually, that I used to say I was playing with my friend and he's under the bath. And she used to do the washing up in the kitchen with the dishes, and he would go around her legs. So she knew he was there. Anyway, Mum and Dad sold the property, and all hell broke loose because 3 boys moved in and a husband and a wife. So they ended up having to have the house exorcised. Because he was throwing books off the bookshelves, he was smashing the bulbs with the light fittings, smashing doors, opening and closing doors and locking them. So he was angry, and from what I can remember myself, because it wasn't till I think I was coming up 7 when we moved out, but I picked up that he was like manhandled by a man as a child, and not good. And that was my first ever experience really with it, and it's gone from strength to strength.
Well, and that's really cool too, because I love when we talk to so many different mediums and so many different investigators from all different belief systems and different methods of doing things. And I love when people tell stories about how they were young when they discovered their gifts, or they had their first paranormal encounter when they were young. For me, I didn't have my first paranormal encounter until I was in my 30s. I mean, it's not that I didn't believe that it was there. I just had never experienced it. And, now all these years later, it's been, like a whole nother world. And so I love when I hear about people, oh yeah, I had this since I was 5, and I'm almost jealous. I'm almost like envious that people have these experiences so early in life, because it's incredible when you have experiences. It really is.
Yeah, well, one of the mediums that I've been on another talk show is Patty Negri, and our lives have been very, very similar, actually.
Wow.
So it's quite interesting. But I think for me, because of where I grew up, it was tenfold. It just went in my face, and it got to a point when I started getting into my teenage years, it started to get in too much for me, because I had nobody helping me around, because mum and dad were sort of shutting off to it.
Right.
And I used to see spirit everywhere, and it was so distressing as a child, because I didn't understand it, and the area that I lived was, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Pendle Hill. It's a very famous place over here where they have witches, or had witches, and the witch trials in Lancaster and things like that. So I actually lived in the basin of Pendle Hill.
Wow.
So to go to school and things like that, every day I had to go over Pendle, and I would just see this every day, that there was a witch, actually. Well, I don't want to call her a witch, because I don't believe in that whole aspect of it, but she was buried right by this restaurant come ski slope that was at the top of the hill, like in the middle of the hill, sorry, and she used to just stand there staring at me every single day without fail. She'd be there, and also there's, in a village that's nearby, it's called Worley, they have a monastery. So and it's still there to this day, Worley Abbey, and there is a walkway from the abbey up to the hills, up to Pendle Hill, and every so often I would just see this monk sort of floating across the top of the hill. What's going on? Obviously, it only twigged when I started to learn about the paranormal, that actually he wasn't floating. It was land that had built up over time, and it had covered his feet, so you just couldn't see him walking. But it was so interesting. But obviously, if you can imagine, as a child, it was quite scary at sometimes, because it wasn't just nice things that I saw. You could see all sorts, So yeah, it was quite scary, and I did sort of close myself off. Well, not purposefully, but I got closed off when I was 15, just for a few months. And then it came back, and then that's where I started going further forward with it. So yeah.
And that's kind of what Sky, like I said, medium Sky Ray, she's a medium that we work with quite frequently. She was asking, how being bombarded like that, what you did without having support and help, because her book is really an interesting story too, about how her journey went. So I guess the question that I think that I have, that she's kind of phrasing there also, is, how did you deal with that? I mean, not having that support system, did you, as you got into your gifts, when you got in, past age 15, did you find other mediums to mentor you, or how did you handle that?
Yes, I did eventually, when I was ready to do so, and that was quite interesting. But I've always had, although as a child, yes, I was bombarded, and we can get bombarded even now, but it becomes that you learn to have trust in the people that, and I say people because to me they are still people, even though they are part. They are protecting you, and I very soon learned that I had angels around me protecting me, and they were my go-to safe place, if that makes sense. So I would 100%. I would literally say, please cover me, and cover me with your wings, and they did. They would cover me and protect me, and to be fair, it wasn't too often that I got frightened, but as a child, it's a lot to take in, because it's not the norm, and I could never. If I ever said anything at school, people would just take the mickey out of me, because they didn't understand it. And they're like, no, you didn't see that, and actually, I did. And now look where they are. They're like, oh yeah, you did, didn't you? So it's, so I think it was more the angels there protecting me, but also as I got to my the middle of my teens, my best friend at school passed away. And she had leukemia, and same name as me, and she was beautiful, and then she was there protecting me. So it was just it was a beautiful energy that she had, in life as and after she passed, you know. So that, yeah, she often comes to me, bless her.
And I think you're hitting on something that I know that people that follow us and that follow our audience knows this, because we talk about this a lot. And I really love when I hear people talk about what you're talking about, is how we have protectors and how we have, you know, guardians, and we have spirit guides, and we have gatekeepers, and all these people help us to facilitate these connections. And for me, on my path and coming into some of my own abilities, we have our lead psychic medium, Rhonda, who is one of my mentors, as well as Sky Ray, who is helping me understand some of the transition I'm going through. But one of the things I think that you hit on is sometimes when we lose somebody, it can be a loved one, it can be a friend.
Yeah.
And even in my experience, it can even be a spirit that you've interacted with at a location that just likes your energy. So it's not a bad attachment, but they just start kind of hanging around you because they want to facilitate in helping you, and they sort of become your guides. I kind of see them sort of as hitchhikers in a way, but they're not a bad attachment. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so this is one of the things when I'm teaching people, you know, because a lot of people come under the impression that our guides are always the same. They're not. You know, our guides change per our spiritual path, our life path. You know, we can have one guide come in. You will have guides that will reoccur, you know, for certain reasons. But the main one that is with us is our gatekeeper, like you say, our guardian, whatever you want to call it. Some people call it a minder, you know, and they are the ones that come with us when we're born. They stay with us and they go with us when we pass. You know, and they are there to protect us fully. Our guides, obviously, for me, this is a personal opinion of mine, but guides, yes, they do protect us, but they are more there for information. It's our gatekeeper that is our protector, our full protector. And believe you me, I know, because I've had experience of it. You know, so but I do feel that it's so important to actually, like I say, respect your guides. You know, you do. I have one, and she's called Little Feather, and sometimes she will appear as an old lady, sometimes she will appear as a young lady, you know, and she is reoccurrent. She does come back, you know. Obviously everyone has their own opinion, you know, so you probably get some mediums that say, no, I've had the same guide for many years. That's fine, that's their opinion, you know, but for my opinion and my experience, that's how it is for me.
And honestly, all the mediums that I've worked with over the years, our mediums that we work with on our team, Sky, all these other mediums that I've met, most of them that I've worked with are aligned with how you think and teach even that way when you're working with them. There was a question I wanted to get real quick, and then I've got another one to throw up here, and I'm trying to keep up with the questions, but I'm having a little delay. So Al, if I miss it, I don't know, I'm having a little delay on my end. But this one was here from Lisa Jordan. She's want to know if you've ever worked with the police helping local law enforcement solve cases. Yes,
yeah. Again, it's another different way that I work, because there's lots. I presume you've heard of the Claires, have you? When you're doing your training, yes. So it's just different ways that people connect, and I say people because we can all do it. It doesn't have to just be a sensitive. It doesn't just have to be a medium. Anyone can connect through the Claires. So my Claires change when I'm working in that respect, and it's quite upsetting at times, because obviously what you're working on, but it's like the best way I can describe myself, if I'm honest, is if you've ever seen Ghost Whisperer with Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Yes.
I am her. That is me. So that's exactly how I see it. That is the best way to describe. The other show that you guys have had is The Medium, and again, that's how I get messages when I'm working with the law enforcement. Is I will get it in dream state, so it will come and I will be shown the situation, and
the download.
Obviously I'm not going to any cases, but when I've had a child case, and that was just very I was distraught with that one, but we managed to solve it, you know, and that was the main thing. Obviously when it comes to a court like the law court, the evidence is inadmissible, unfortunately, in this country. However, it can help them lead to what they need to get.
Absolutely. I'm still trying to keep up with comments. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But no, I think that is correct too, because I think that what people don't understand, I think people have a misconception of mediums, and they have a misconception of psychics, and they have a misconception of how these things work. I don't think they understand the difference of energies, how you work with energies, how you work with spirit, the difference between those, and how you can, learn to develop those clairs for specific things that you're doing, like you're talking about. So actually going in and using certain parts of your abilities and honing those abilities to help you get the information you need, whether it's going in psychically or mediumistically or whichever way you have to go in for the circumstance you're working.
That's very, very true. Because please, nobody take offense to this in any way, shape or form, but there are people out there that go, well, what was I just thinking? Oh, what's the name of my granddad? Mate, it doesn't work that way. You can't. And actually, when I am put on the spot, like last night, I was on a talk show and they asked me to do a reading, so I did. And she took everything. But it's the fact that the people's expectations, and unfortunately, there are people out there that give people like me a bad name because of how they portray themselves and how they, shall we say, fake what they actually see or get. And for me, it's like I don't ever want to have a page where I ask for stars, or I will give you a reading if you like and share my page. Well, spirit don't work that way, I'm afraid. They will come to who they want to come to. You can't govern through that, so that's a big bugbear of mine, to be fair. But this is one of the things is it has to be from the heart, and that's how I've always worked. It's always in love and in light and from the heart.
It's got to be so pure. Absolutely. And I think that's also why you can have 10 very gifted, talented, experienced mediums and psychics in a room, and they may get 10 different connections. It's because I think, and this is my own personal opinion as being a paranormal investigator all these years, sometimes they just don't want to talk to me, but they might want to talk to Al. It's just sort of like, to me, I look at it this way. I go into that big environment with a bunch of people, and there's somebody across the room that I've never met. They've never done anything to me. I don't know anything other than I don't like their energy. So I just don't want to interact with them. I don't even know them. And I think that's in my opinion, it's the same with spirit. They pick and choose who they choose to show themselves to and who they want to interact with and who they think they can connect with.
Yeah, but it's like I always say to people, if spirit want to show themselves, they will. If they don't, they don't. It's their prerogative. We have to respect that, and I think you are very right. When you do say a seance or spirit board, things like that, you do get silly spirits sometimes that try to mess, but you will get spirit that just don't want to talk to you, and it's because, like, I always say, you get soul matches. And if your soul doesn't match with somebody, and it's not a case of like a true love, or I mean just a soul match as a person, then you're going to go bang. You're just going to flat like this constantly. And like you say, it's like that as we are in the living. We can't get along with everybody, and I like to think I'm fairly easy to get on with, but there'll be people out there that don't like me, but I'm not really fussed.
Hey, I'm with you. That's kind of me, and I know that my gals will tell you this too, my guys and gals. This is it. It's your choice. You can like it, you can not like it. I don't got time for any.
They can switch off. They don't have to listen.
That's right. You change the channel.
It's just me.
Exactly right. And I think that's another interesting point, because one of the two things that you've said are things that we always talk about at Publix. And I want to bring this up because it's so relevant. We always tell people that, listen, when we do public investigations, we invite the public in to teach them basics of paranormal, basics of protection, grounding, shielding, connecting, all those basic elements. And then we go out and we try to have experiences at known locations. And we always tell them, look, we don't know what's going to happen tonight. It isn't up to us. It's up to spirit. It's up to, we could go and have the best night of our lives, or it's not, it's not a carnival. It's not a circus. We can't make them perform. It doesn't work that way. We go in here and we may have a great night, or we may have nothing happen at all. The other thing that happens to us a lot, and I think it's because of the way that we connect, spirits that have nothing to do with the property will also come up. Spirits connected to the guests, or just transients. We call them transients. They just show up and start interacting with us. So I think that's true. I think for people that really start working with spirit and understand that. The other point that you made that I thought was very interesting that I liked hearing people say is people are, in my opinion, in life is how they are in death. So in other words, I think when we hear there's a demon in every single place we go, it might just be a mean spirit. If they were, for lack of better words, an ass in life, we shouldn't be shocked if they're acting that way in death. I think they're the same, both sides of the coin.
I haven't, and again, it is just my opinion, but I do have. I'm not a fan of the word demon, if I'm honest. Because I don't believe there are demons, for one, and I have had many, many experiences. I have been on retrievals, I do house clearances, and they are the lowest of low energy. That's what these people think are demons, and they're just the lowest of low energy. And if you can imagine, so for instance, somebody's been murdered, and then that murderer passes away, or it gets taken, through no fault of their own. If you imagine the type of person they were when they were here, imagine them going into death with that same persona, that same energy about them, and then time starts to elapse. So imagine that negative energy. It's like building up and building up and building up. It's getting like a big fat energy ball that's so negative. That's what these things are, and this is, believe you me, I sat in on a demonic retrieval, and as soon as they said, right, we're done, after 45 minutes, my guides went, no, they're not. They haven't done it. So I'm like, no. When people say they see the red eyes, yeah, you can see red eyes, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a demon. It can just be negative. Sure. Again, the red connects to the negative in certain ways. Obviously, it's positive in other ways. So yeah. It's one of my books.
Absolutely. And I think that, that's what I love about the paranormal. There is so many different theories, and everybody has different theories and different ways of connecting with things and seeing things. And our thing is always, look, hey, we're not saying our way is the only way. You do what works for you, as long as it's true and as long as it's from the right place. I'll never have anything to say about how other people work. But I think we sometimes try too desperately in the paranormal to classify everything. This is a demon. This is a this. This is a that. And I think sometimes
too much classification. You're right.
We just have to look at the interactions and then see how to deal with that energy, because it's all energy exchange. And I think in our case, we've gone into places that are quote unquote demonic or supposedly had demonic history. And yeah, they're negative. They're dark. We've had some bad interactions at those places. But to this point, I don't think that I've ever encountered anything demonic. Have I encountered non-human or very low negative energy? Yes. So I share the same feeling on people just misclassifying some of these things.
I think for me, don't get me wrong, I love Hollywood and all that, but it's Hollywood as, giving it a bad name in certain ways.
I think people are drawn to the darker demonic stuff is why they push it so much,
Oh yeah, it's scarier. It's a fear factor.
Yeah.
If they go in thinking, oh, this is a demon, they're going to treat it that way, and actually it might just be very negative energies. But actually, if you start doing this and start provoking, boom, 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 it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And there you go. It's this big, fat, horrible energy.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another great point, because one of the things that we always talk about too is it's intent, right? Everything you do is intent. If you go in with positive energy and positive mindset, you're going to have more positive interactions or better chances of positive interactions. If you go in with negative intent and you go in looking for dark, man, the dark's going to seek you out like it's like, a moth coming to the flame when you do that. That's why people, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So it's okay. I was just going to say, you actually, and I have personally found when I've gone to two places, that actual negative energy will come to me because they want a bit of my high energy, and they're actually, it's like they're stuck and they just want some goodness around them, and they'll actually come to me, and that doesn't bother me because that's fine, you know, and they'll, and it's not that they're taking my energy, they just want to surround themselves with the energy that I give, you know, and yeah,
they want to be in that energy, right? Yeah.
And,
you know.
and they may like your accent as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could listen to you talk all night. I'm just going to say, I'm not
yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Don't you actually have like a English person for your Siri or your?
I do actually.
Okay.
Yes, my Siri is.
Yeah.
Yes, my Siri is British. She sure is. Yeah, Al, give away all my secrets here on a live show.
Yeah. Well, that's just one little tidbit about that.
So where has been, you mentioned kind of your favorite place to that the 15th century hotel that you have been to so many times. What has been probably, and I know you've had so many, so this is hard because I hate when people ask me this question, so I feel unfair when I ask it, but I have to know. What has been like, you know, like one of your favorite experiences? I won't say your favorite because if you're like us, there's too many. But what is one of those moments that you really felt like, man, this is it. This is why I do what I do?
Yeah, I've probably had too many of those to be able to put one place to to name. But there's a place, again, it's a pub, a public house, and they do have rooms because we stayed there and it's in Wales. It's called the Skirrid Inn. Amazing venue, and the landlord's lovely. He wanted to marry me even though he had a wife. Bless him. But yeah, so that was one we did just before the first batch of COVID hit, which was amazing. And then we went to it was in Abergavenny, and we went to a castle that was nearby. Oh my lord. And it wasn't even an investigation, but oh, the history. And as soon as we parked the car in the car park, all I heard were swords just clanging together. And then I would hear muskets going off also, again, coming from different times here.
Yeah.
You know, and then unfortunately there was some negative spirit there, you know, but again, it's the history of the place. It's hundreds and hundreds of years old and so beautiful. You know, the pictures are actually on my Facebook if people want to have a look and go back. But yeah, it's beautiful. But I have to say, my favourite place is Pendle Hill. And like I said, you know, because it goes all the way back to my childhood. I am going with a team from Scotland, and a historian that's from the area. He's quite a famous gentleman. He's lovely, and so that once we get out of this lockdown, this is because obviously we are in lockdown at the moment here, and yeah, so we've got lots coming up. But I like to experience lots of different places, and it's a shame, like with here, there's asylums and things that used to be asylums, and they've been overdone, you know, and you don't tend to pick much up from them. You know, so it's such a shame. So it's so nice to go to, and I have clients that call me in. I got flown out to Iraq with a client, you know, and year before last, and it was so interesting because I've never been to Iraq before, you know, and it was such an interesting place, and I met some lovely people. But oh my lord, the difference in the level of spirit there. Oh, it's just it was because it was Baghdad, so it was like you can imagine. From the war.
Yep. That's a lot of traumatic energy and thousands of years of energy on that land. So that's a lot of depositing.
Yeah. So I have had lots and lots of different places, you know, but I'm looking forward to coming back to the States. I definitely am.
Well, if you ever get to our part of the States, you absolutely have a standing invitation to come hang out with us. We would love to go out in the field with you. Go ahead, Al.
Yeah. No, I was just going to ask her if you've been to the States before.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I
Where
haven't
did
even-
you
well,
visit?
no, I have been, but I haven't investigated. But obviously, because of how
Okay.
I work, I picked things up anyway, even if I wasn't on an investigation. So Disney World, believe it or not.
Okay. Okay.
See,
We've all been there.
everybody
I think.
sees Mickey. Everybody goes and sees Mickey.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
has some interesting spirit in Disney World. So
Really?
Yeah, I never thought about that. But yeah, that would be a lot of people, a lot of history there too. So
there was a
that's
gentleman. Oh, what was his name now? Hold on, let me just see if I can get them to give it me. Oh, what was his name? It's gone out of. I know. I looked into it afterwards, and it was documented, and it was a gentleman basically that had passed when they were building one of the rides, and he got trapped under some of the steel.
Yes, I know this story. It was when they were building Space Mountain, I believe.
That's the one. Yeah.
The indoor roller coaster. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. I've heard this story. So
Yeah,
you connected with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. Very cool.
I knew nothing. Obviously, I knew nothing about him. And
sure.
when I went down near that area, yeah, that was quite interesting because he was actually such a beautiful man. You know, and he had family. Such a tragedy. You know, such a shame.
Yeah.
But I think for me,
I had heard that story too.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
so no, sometimes I find it hard, and you know, I don't care what sort of medium somebody is, they always find something hard, you know, because we're human beings at the end of the day. But I'm an empath as well, so I am a sensitive, but I am an empath, and I work with all the Claires basically,
right.
just at different times. But my empathy is my strongest link. Along with my clairaudience and claircognizance, and the cognizance is the clear knowing. So it's basically the information just gets popped into your head, and it's information you couldn't possibly know, and it just comes out your mouth. But when
you undoubtedly know it. I mean, you know it. It's not a thought. You know it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And when I connect in that way, it just it really sits with me. And it's not that the spirits sit with me, it's just that the thought there. See, Sky is as well, bless her. It is hard. I like Sky, you need to contact me, we need to chat. Definitely. But it can be hard sometimes because and this is what I always say to people is we are not robots. You know, we are human beings. We have just been blessed with a gift to be a vessel to spirit, you know, and we have been put on this earth plane to do this very thing, you know. And somebody asked me last night. Yeah, and somebody asked me last night, do you believe in angels? And I work with angels, but also when I had a major operation where I passed away and got brought back, and the angel said to me at that point, you're not meant for the earth, but you're meant to be there to help people. And actually they said to me, you're an archangel, you know, and I don't take any of that for granted, because what a gift, you know, what a gift to be blessed with.
Yep, you have definitely got to talk with Sky, and you've got to talk with Rhonda, because you are talking exactly the things that they have instilled in me on my journey. So you guys need to communicate. You all will really link up, I think. But so do you have anything coming up that you would like to share? Because we've got about 12 minutes left. So in case we get off on a tangent, I wanted to make sure we give you an opportunity to talk about any projects you have coming up or anything that you'd like to mention. I know you do a lot of shows. In fact, that's funny story is kind of how I kind of found Charlotte, was on Facebook. I saw you on a show. And again, obviously I have a thing with the English accent there. So, obviously, I will say that's why I was watching. No, I was fascinated. I was fascinated in how you worked and what you were talking about and the stories that you were telling. And I reached out and sent her a message and just said, hey, you want to come on the show? And she said yes. So that's kind of how I stumbled onto you. But you do a lot of those. So do you have any regular appearances that you do that some of the audience might want to tune in and see?
So Yeah, of course. So every single Wednesday, apart from this week, because we're actually doing something tomorrow on Zoom, I'm part of a local spiritualist church that's near me. It's Slough, which is SLOUGH, Spiritualist Church. And on there, I basically, since February of last year, I've been doing it every Wednesday, and I will do meditation. And it's always a different meditation. I never knew I had so many meditations in me. Sometimes I just go on 10 minutes before, I'm like, come on, give me a meditation, and spirit pop it in my head. It's wonderful. And within that, I also incorporate healing, and then go on to do some readings, so and quite often it's not always just myself. Quite often it's one of my other colleagues and other mediums that I work with. But yes, on my mediumship page you will see lots of lives coming up. They're all free lives, and I do it for the love of it, and that's so important. We have got, obviously, because of where we are at the moment in this country with COVID, we're struggling to plan a lot of things, because we don't know where, because they changed their mind from, like, they changed their underwear, so the government here. So it's like, well, okay. So it's quite hard to plan, but the next biggest thing, obviously, isn't till January of next year, with my team and another with an American team, and that's going to be a large investigation. That's going to what I'm planning on doing is actually extending it, not just the Mermaid Inn, actually doing some other areas for like a whole long weekend.
Wow.
Just giving them the experience, because actually where I live is Windsor in Berkshire. And we have Windsor Castle. It's the Queen's home that she loves the most. And quite often I've seen her. Often you see them in the car going past, and she's tiny, bless her. And that's where I go running, in the grounds of the Great Park. And it's so beautiful. So there's so much heritage just in this area. So it's nice, and that's what we will be looking at as well, is sort of staying around this area and going further afield, but mainly at the moment it's doing my mediumship work online.
Well, I want to tell everybody, make sure we've had it up on the screen when we've been in between popping up some of the comments. Make sure you go over and follow her page, follow what Charlotte's doing at Special Medium UK. Keep up with what she's doing, because I'm telling you, it's fascinating to hear her speak, and that's why I was really excited to get her to come on, because she does a great job with how she tells the stories and talks with people and delivers her information. So Charlotte, would love to have you come back on sometime and maybe do some readings if you want, and do that type of a show. Like I said, we do those type of shows with Sky and Rhonda all the time. So we would love to have you come on and do that. And I also want to go ahead and say it and put it out here on live, so that way we're committed to it. But I think we should try to make a trip over and see you at some point, and you should come here, and we should do like an exchange thing and actually make this happen. I think we should really do this. I think it would be awesome.
Myself and my tech colleague Liam, we had already planned to come to the States together anyway. So that's probably going to be next year anyway now, because of what's going on around us. Or the latter end of the year, hopefully, but yeah, that's so if there are any teams that would like us to come along, then we will be available. But I am coming out to do some TV work as well in the States, so that's going to be fun.
Fantastic. Al, any other questions you want to hit? We've got about 6.5 minutes.
No, I just think what you're doing is awesome. We love mediums. That's about all I got.
I thought you were going to ask a question, Al. We always try to wrap the show with a big question, and you're not going. I can believe it.
Well, I didn't know you were ready for the big question yet.
Okay, all right. Well, go for it. We'll see where it leads us. Okay. Yep, go for it.
All right. So one of the questions we always like to ask Charlotte, our guest, is if you were to pass away and you come back as a spirit, what would your ghost outfit be?
My ghost outfit.
Assuming you can pick.
Yeah.
So,
I'm lucky. Yeah. It'd have to be an LBD, a little black dress.
Okay.
That's another new one. We've had the leggings, we've had my comfort sweats and sweatshirt, we've had whatever I had on at the moment because I don't mind, and we've had crazy things like people are going to dress up like a clown and terrorize people. So that's another new one.
Yeah, I'm a bit, I suppose OCD sometimes. I think it's more because over the last 20 months, I've lost nearly 9 stone in weight. And I didn't used to be able to wear the nice clothes that I can now, and yeah, I love a little black dress. I do. And especially my heels.
Yeah. So they can hear you coming.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep. I keep going. I keep changing. My Al's consistent. Like Al sticks with his, and I'll let him tell you yours because him and Sky have obviously the same one because she just threw it up there in the comments. But I'll hold that for a second. But I keep changing mine because I thought I want to do the Grim Reaper because that's so cliche, right? And there's memes, everybody talks about. So I thought, how cool! I come back as a Grim Reaper. Somebody sees that, it's definitely going to freak them out, right? But now I don't know. Now I'm kind of thinking I want to do something totally different. So I'm thinking I want to do a pirate outfit or just something really that doesn't make sense so that wherever I'm at, people will definitely know I'm a spirit and they won't know why I'm dressed like that. So I think I've changed mine again, Al.
I think another good one for me, I was just thinking then, I would love to do to have the iconic Marilyn Monroe white dress. That's another one.
There you go.
Good one. Yep. Al, you going to tell her yours? You're going to end on that note because you always like to share yours.
Well, I don't necessarily like to share it. I mean, you always tell it. But I said if I was going to come back to scare people, I'm just going to come back naked.
That's his. Yep. That's his go-to. I can't argue that because it's hey, that's definitely original. But one more question. I just something else that's kind of a good question. If you could pick anywhere in the world that you could go back in time, in that period of time, as a ghost, not just as an observer, but as a ghost, where would it be and why?
Victorian era, 100%. Yeah.
I kind of can see that. Yep. I kind of can see that.
I'm an old soul. I've lived before. I know I've done past life regression, so I know where I've been. But yeah, that's definitely where I would want to go. I love the dresses, even though they had to go to breathe.
But, all that, the big hoops and all the stuff
Either that or the 1920s.
The 1920s. That's interesting. That's very interesting. That's an interesting period of time. Go ahead now.
Michelle on our team likes the Jane Austen era, so she actually has clothing from that era. She dresses up,
I think I would like to go back to I don't know. I think I'd like to go all the way back to early civilization. I'd like to see if the cavemen really were the cavemen. I don't think I'd like to go all the way back because I just want to know. There's just so many other mysteries, world mysteries that fascinate me that I would really love to try and see what early civilizations did and see if the history books have it even remotely right. The great Greece, the greatest period in their civilization, or the Romans, or the Egyptians.
My son has just my son's 9 and he's just been doing the Romans with his homeschooling, and actually I learned quite a bit more than I actually knew, so it was quite interesting.
You've been schooling too, right?
Yeah.
Well, Charlotte,
it'd be interesting I was going to say it'd be interesting to go back to when the pyramids were built too.
Yeah.
I'd like to go back to that time.
You just want to know if they really had aliens involved. That's what you want to know, right, Al?
Yeah, I'm not such a big alien. I'm not a big believer in aliens.
No, me neither.
I'm just saying, some people think that's how that they were actually built. So we had one final quick question that popped up. I'll throw this up here before we get ready to wrap. She wants to, Lisa Jordan wants to know, do you see animal spirits?
Yes, I do indeed. And it's something that I have just been teaching my students and very quickly about totem animals and spirit animal. Yeah, I do, but I don't tend, I'm not an animal whisperer, let's put it that way. I don't speak to the animals. They don't speak to me. I see them.
Right. So I know that some psychics, we've actually had one on our show that's what she does. She connects with animals like pets and things. And she
This is
has,
what I'm saying. Lots of people have different ways of connecting, but it's just something that I've never been able to do.
right. But for spirit animals, that's a little different because they have a different role. So do you want to touch briefly on that, the totem animals?
Yeah,
I think that would be real
obviously,
cool.
totem animals are, again, they come with you when you're born and they stay with you. And you can have usually between 5 and 7 totem animals. But then your spirit animals, they will come to show themselves to you for a reason. And once you have got that message, then they go. You know, it's like when people say they see robins, they see butterflies, they see, or whatever animal it is, you know, you are being shown that animal for a reason. And until you actually get that message as to why they're there, you know, they will stay. And then once you've got it, they'll go.
And so would you real quick explain for the viewers about how spirit animals work, or how totem animals work, what the significance is of that? Because I think a lot of people probably don't understand that. If you've not ever researched or studied or been mentoring with somebody, you're probably not familiar with that, exactly how that works.
So a basic connection with a spirit animal is actually that our loved ones, you know, human spirit, for want of a better word, will use animals to connect to you, to actually let you know that they're there. And this is what spirit animals tend to do. But they do come in and give you messages as well, and make you see things. But the majority of the time, people will see them. It's like when people see a feather. You know, they're being shown a feather for a reason, and it's to let them know that actually there's somebody is there.
And the color can be significant too. I think people the significance of the colors.
Yeah.
Even in messages, colors can mean a lot of things too. It's a very important part of things.
Oh, 100%. We'd be here all day if we started going into that.
But I know it is late where you are, so I am going to wrap the show. I just saw that question came up, and I really felt like they wanted an answer to that. So I felt like we should hit that real quick. But Charlotte, it has been a blast having you on the show. I hope you will come back and visit with us again. And if you are ever in the States and we can see you, I would love to. Or if we ever get over on the other side of the pond, definitely would love to hang out with you. If you'll stick around, we'll say goodbye to you off the air real quick. But everybody, thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Gathering. It has been an absolute blast tonight. We love when we have like-minded folks to come on and talk about the paranormal and spirit and all these different things. We will not be on next week because we will be filming the documentary in Randolph County. So we will not be on next week, but we'll be back the week after that. But we will be going live while we're there, a little behind the scenes stuff while we're shooting. So make sure you tune in and check that out. And please go over and show Charlotte some love. Make sure you follow what she's doing and keep up with her. And as always, take care of each other, and we will see you guys on the next one. I got to find the outro. Al, where is it at? There it is. All right, everybody. Good night. We'll see you guys next week.
You got it.
Good night.